Hola clase, this is grammar lesson number 1 for chapter 3 in the level 1 book. Now this is going to correspond with page 3 in your notes packet. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about verbs that end in AR and how to use those in a sentence. But first I want to do a little review with you of the different subject pronouns and the verbs that we've talked about so far. So first of all, we've got your subject pronouns here on the screen. You can look through those, but hopefully these are good review for you. Things like tú means you, but it's informal. Ella means she, just your subject pronouns. As far as verbs go, the first two verbs that we've looked at have been ser and tener. And ser means to be, and tener means to have. And these each change in different ways to match up with the subject of the sentence. And for each of them, there are 6 forms of that verb. Now, we've more or less skipped the vosotros form for each of these, but these are your forms of ser and tener, and these are, up till now, the only verbs we've really talked about. Okay, what we're going to work on now, though, is a pattern. Okay, these two verbs, tener and ser, don't really follow a good pattern. Most of the rest of the verbs in Spanish, however, do. And so we just need to know what type of verb it is and what endings to use, and that's all we need. So verbs with AR endings. First of all, there's a couple terms we need to know. In Spanish, the base form of a verb is called its infinitive. Okay, now infinitives in English mean to, like to run, to walk, to work, to talk. Okay, but in Spanish, you can recognize an infinitive because it's either going to end in AR, ER, or IR. Okay, and the one we're really focusing on here is AR verbs. Okay. All Spanish verbs are going to change their endings according to what the subject of the sentence is. Okay, so what's going to end up happening is that the AR at the end is going to change. Okay. Some examples of AR verbs that we know: hablar, estudiar. Go through the rest of the list. We've probably had 15 in our vocab list for this chapter alone. Okay, and so all we need to know is what the pattern is, and we can use all 15 of these verbs. All right, so to do this, I'm going to give you an example with the verb estudiar, which means to study. Okay, the new endings that we're going to tack on to the end of this are going to be the same endings that we tack on to any of the other verbs we're using. Okay, so first of all, we've got yo estudio. Okay, so I drop the AR, change it to an O, estudio. To estudias, you study, estudias. Él or ella or usted estudia, he or she studies. Nosotros estudiamos. You see the vosotros form here is estudiáis, but we are not really going to be using that one. And then ellos, ellas, and ustedes estudian. Okay, they study or you guys study. Okay, so what we did in this chart is to drop the AR from the end of estudiar, and we added different endings based on what the subject of the sentence was. And the endings we added were o, as, a, amos, and am. Okay? So this is going to work for any of the other verbs that we're using as well. So hablar, for instance, becomes hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, and hablan. All right, we're definitely going to be practicing this over the next few days, but that's it for this lesson. I'd like you to answer the questions below. Gracias and adios.